I'm Stephen Lewis. That's Sean Kelly. Sean and Steve fix everything. Yesterday, we got a little love from Marvel Studios and got to check out Avengers Endgame a little bit earlier. Let's be honest, ticket sales already through the roof. You're having a hard time finding a show this weekend. It's because it's practically sold out. It's going to make $1 billion. It's the culmination of 22 films. Does it stick the landing?
Well, here's the thing. Are we going to do a spoiler-free?
I've been wrestling with that since yesterday.
I think we can do a spoiler-free.
All right.
Just because here's the thing. When I went and watched the movie yesterday and I didn't pay attention to anything online, I enjoyed it more just because I wasn't looking for the spoilers to pop up.
True.
Right?
Right. You know, you and I have been talking about this movie for a while now, and there were a couple of I was excited. Like, 2 of my predictions came true.
One of mine did, because I remember looking at you going, I called that. I called that.
It does jump around a little bit, so you do have to pay attention to find out where things are in the timeline. It picks up 22 days after the last movie. If you don't remember the last movie by now, if you've been living under a rock, Thanos collects all the stones. Thor tries to kill him but fails. He snaps his fingers. Half the known universe is wiped out completely.
Yeah.
A lot of the heroes are gone. Some remain, but our favorite Iron Man is kind of stranded in space when we leave him last time, and that's literally where it picks up.
Yeah.
Right at.
And my thing is how everybody was wondering, well, how's Iron Man going to get back to help the rest of the Avengers, which you find out very, very quickly when that scene kicks in. And then the first 15 minutes of that movie is them basically culminating a plan and executing it like boom, boom, boom. And you're like, oh, crap, what happened?
They kind of mirror Infinity War. The first few minutes is a punch to the gut when you see what happens, and, I mean, Loki dies right away.
Right.
This kind of goes right into that. You're like, oh, my God. Like, and that's how it starts. And then from there, we jump ahead 5 years, and you kind of see how the world has adjusted to life without half the people they knew. And it was totally random who lived or who died. There wasn't any kind of science to it. It was just you snap the fingers and half of the population of every planet is completely gone. And what I did like about it, and they're subtle. There are so many callbacks to the previous movies in the film.
Well, and here's the thing, without divulging like specifics, there were a ton of cameos, because it's no secret that the basis of this movie is time travel. Now, whether it's the time stone or whether it has something to do with Ant-Man, you'll figure that out. But all the people that they basically probably brought back to do a quick shoot here and a quick shoot there was incredible.
Yeah. Everybody they revisit Thor, the Dark World. They revisit the first Avengers. They revisit parts of Iron Man 3. Like, there's a lot of stuff that gets brought back into the light. You know, for a while, a lot of people didn't like the second Avengers, Age of Ultron. But if you watch that now and you look at all the things that set up, everything now has made that a better movie. And it's kind of like some of the other ones that were kind of weaker. Like, I had a better appreciation for Thor Dark World after watching this movie than I did when I originally saw Thor Dark World, because of all the callbacks that you get.
Yeah, and you got to remember, like, when people tell me, that wasn't such a good movie or this wasn't such a good movie, I say they're chapters in a book, all right? It started with Iron Man, and it ends with, Endgame. And you may not have a great chapter here and there, but everything means something. And you can tell after watching Endgame, you're like, everything makes complete sense on why they did certain things.
It's amazing how they recreated certain scenes that were literally going on while the rest of the movie that we all saw in theaters were happening that you had no idea. And how they did it, and flawlessly, is amazing. The greatest thing about the Marvel Cinematic Universe is the circumstances are pretty dire. I mean, these guys are suffering. They're in a low place when you find them, because they're all dealing with the fact that they were supposed to be Earth's mightiest heroes, and they failed on an epic scale.
Yeah.
And so they're all dealing with loss in their own way and trying to figure out how they can put it together. But what all these movies has done, they inject humor to the point where, even though it's a pretty depressing situation, it's hilarious to watch it all play out. It doesn't feel out of place.
No.
There are parts in this movie where we saw it in relatively a small crowd, but there were people laughing hysterically. What they've done with Thor over the course of the last 3 films is incredible. Hemsworth is phenomenal in this.
I'm looking forward to seeing, how the stories, continue for some of the Avengers. Because obviously, without spoiling anything, some people die. It's just how it is. It's not been a secret that when it comes to Endgame, you're going to lose some of your favorite characters.
Yeah, and you and I were talking about which one, and I was kind of bracing myself for one character to die, and they went in a completely different direction with another one that when it happened, I was like, oh, damn.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't see that coming at all. There is some loss, but they create the level that there had to be. There's some scale to this where not everybody was going to make it out. It wasn't like Game of Thrones where they were all sitting around the fire and you all know that, okay, 9 out of 10 of you is going to bite it tomorrow. But there was definitely a sense of loss that comes with this, and it kind of slows a little bit in the middle, not painfully so, but just storyline a little bit. But you do get a lot of the things that you wanted. I mean, it's no secret. Obviously, if you've seen the trailers, I will say this. Everything you've seen so far has all taken place in the first 15 minutes of the movie.
No, and when this thing finally culminates towards the end of the film, I just remember looking at this scene that it was just such a comic book geek's dream to see this on screen finally and how everything played out. It's an unbelievable wrap up to, like you said, 22 films. I mean, most things happen in like trilogies. Harry Potter was like, 7 films, but this is a 22 film story that I thought they wrapped up perfectly.
One of the biggest complaints that everybody had about Infinity War was the lack of Captain America having anything to do. This is very much a Steve and Tony movie, and you get the reunion that you kind of wanted them to have. You knew that they had to kind of patch things up a little bit, but there's the fight scene, and I think all of us in our row were like on the edge of our seats. The fight scene where Captain America is in the fight, and I won't give it away, but we were like, oh my God, and like everybody's on their seat.
Well, that's what you can call a classic comic book moment in history. When it happened in the comic books, from the very jump, people talked about this happening in the movies, and you were waiting for it to happen. And I don't want to spoil this because it's such a huge, just oh my God moment, and you finally get to see it happen on the big screen in an epic way.
And there's a lot of things that work. I mean, it's an emotional ride. There are a couple of moments where you kind of almost hold back tears for a second, and you get like. It's a very good roller coaster ride of a film, and it wraps up some storylines. I think there's going to be a storyline that wraps up that a lot of people won't be happy with. I mean, you kind of saw it coming, and it had to be this way. The other storyline that happened, we were kind of talking about it where we had a prediction where it almost kind of panned out that way. It didn't, but it kind of did, and it'll be interesting to see where they go with the next phase of films and where they carry it from here.
That's what I'm wondering, because I was telling you this morning. It's like, now that I've seen all the movies in Endgame, I'm like going, now what do I do? Yeah. It's like when you get done binging a popular series on Netflix, and you're like, there's no more. Now what do I do? But Marvel has said that they're going to reveal where their next direction is going to be very, very soon. And here's the thing. I asked a friend of mine because we did not see a post-credit scene.
There isn't one.
They said, but sometimes what they'll do is tag the post-credit on when it actually hits the theaters.
Okay.
Because I'm actually seeing it again. So when I see it in the theaters with all the mortals, then I'll definitely stay after again to see if there is one.
Yeah, there was yesterday. I mean, we were in a room of like media people and geeks, so it was kind of cool. But there was a kind of a teaser scene, but not really. And you hear a sound. I can't give it away without giving away the end.
Yeah.
You hear a distinct sound, and I think that's where they're going to take a certain character next. I don't know how they're going to get there, but I think that's kind of where there's a couple of things in this movie that you see, and Marvel is notorious for not just doing things to do them. There's a purpose for everything that they have put in their movie. So I'm interested to see where they go from this. All in all, it's 3 hours long. It doesn't feel like 3 hours.
No, it didn't. But there were trying times when you're like, should I go up and go to the? Is this going to be a time I can use the restroom?
Right.
Like, you have to pick and choose your time well.
Yeah, I did mine in the first, kind of like right after the first act. The end of it, the last hour, do everything you can not to leave your seat in the last hour because you don't want to miss anything. All in all, I mean, I got to rank it up there. I won't say it's my top comic book movie ever, but I do put it in my top 5.
I almost think you have to, just because of where it is and the purpose that it serves, which is wrapping up a ton of these storylines while at the same time launching some new ones. Because don't forget, Disney, a.k.a. Marvel, is going to have their own streaming service in the fall. So now some of these storylines might directly come from Endgame as well.
Yeah, there's a couple of things they've already announced, so it's not spoiler. They're going to do a Falcon and Bucky Barnes TV series.
Yep.
They're doing Hawkeye is doing a TV series. They're doing a Loki TV series. So there's a couple.
And I've heard they're even doing Scarlet Witch Vision as well.
Yes.
They talked about that.
So there's a couple of those characters that are going to spin off. But where the movies go, that's anybody's ball game. I think when we talk about fixing things, it's tough to fix Marvel because they put one guy in charge and they had a plan and they accepted from the time things started with Iron Man in 2008. They kind of said, this is where we're going to get to.
Yeah.
And they took their time getting there. They weren't in a rush to get it done. And even their worst movie has made over $400 million. So it's tough to call that a failure, even though some would go, well, it didn't make $1 billion. Yeah, but if I could live on $400 million and that was a mistake, please sign me up for that all day long.
So now that Marvel has set their precedent on what a successful storyline is, which in their eyes obviously is 22 movies, will they apply the same logic to the next decade? Whereas, all right, now you've got another, maybe not 22 movies, but now you've got another, 15 movies to get you to, whatever the culmination of the next phase will be.
I think Feige's smart enough to do that. They kind of said they're going to give X-Men a rest, which they probably need to because you and I aren't necessarily excited about it. The final chapter of Fox's version of the X-Men, Hugh Jackman's already rode off in the sunset with Logan, which is one of my top films. That was a fantastic movie. Yeah. But I think because you've kind of taken the Avengers into space and with Captain Marvel and with Guardians of the Galaxy, you've made space acceptable for superheroes. I think it's a good time to reboot the Fantastic Four because I think if you want to do like DC hit it out of the park with Shazam. If you haven't seen it yet, go see it. It's a great family-friendly superhero film, which is kind of what the Fantastic Four is. They're a little cheesy. They're a little hokey.
Right.
Now's the time to reboot them, and you can kind of plug them into the universe since they have the rights to those characters back. But we'll see. It's going to be weird where they go without certain characters being a part of it anymore, without spoiling it. And which is what I don't want to do, even though I'm dying to tell you how.
I know, God.
I think it's a home run. I think it's hard not to be. It's tough for a movie to live up to the hype, and I think this one does.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you're gonna go spend the money. Obviously, you're gonna see it if you're a fan, and even if you're just dipping your toe into the Marvel world where you've caught a few movies and you enjoyed them, you'll like this one too. So, I mean, if you're gonna sit here and say that this was the end-all thing for Marvel, but you know they have a plan,
right?
So the end is the beginning for another billion-dollar movie industry for them.
Final thought: what do you give it?
I mean, I'll give it. I don't want to give it a perfect score because nothing's ever perfect. But for me, it gave me everything I wanted. It wrapped up everything I needed wrapped up. It answered a lot of questions, and it gave a lot of new directions for characters where you're like, oh, okay, I'm interested to see how this plays out.
Yeah, and I'm excited for you to see it with a crowd because I want to see how normal movie
humans, right? I got
normal moviegoers check it out. No, because it's different with us because when you watch it with a bunch of media people and a bunch of critics, it's different.
Yeah, it is.
To see the reaction,
it's a different experience.
And I always see these movies twice. I know it's expensive these days to see a movie twice. I always see it twice just because I tend to miss things the first time around.
Yeah.
And then I catch it the second time. But I'm with you. I can't give it a perfect score. I absolutely loved this film.